All right, so in today's video, we're going to take a brief look at a couple of what are technically misleading graphs. Personally, I'm the kind of person who typically thinks that the graphs themselves are not misleading. It's just whoever put them together is incompetent. But let's take a look at these examples and get an impression of what exactly is being done that is misleading in these examples. So our first example describes tuition, room, and board at all colleges and universities. So this is probably supposed to be the arithmetic average of college and university cost in an academic year. It begins in 2007 through the 2008 academic year, and then goes for the next 4 years total up until 2010 to 2011. As you can see here, looking at the graph, it looks like it steadily goes up. Should probably be using a color other than white. It steadily goes up like this. And just from looking at the bars in the graph, it looks like the last bar is more than twice as tall as the first bar. Now, let's look at our the sides of these, so the labels on each axis. So this one, the bottom axis just gives years, and that looks fine. On the left axis, though, as you can see, the number we actually start with is not 0. We actually start with 15,500, and the final number is 18,500. So potentially what you could experience from looking at this graph is that you may have the false impression that the cost of tuition, room, and board at colleges and universities has on average doubled since 2007 through 2008. When in reality, what has happened is it's gone from $16,500 roughly to $18,500, or to about $18,000, which is only an increase of $1,500. And this could lead to a significant misunderstanding, because 1,500 divided by the original price of roughly, we'll say 16,500, just to be crude, is only an increase actually of 9%, which is not actually that significant of an increase, especially when you start thinking about like inflation and stuff like that. Although, as I recall, over those years, inflation was not that high because we were going into and coming out of a recession for that most of that time. But in any event, the graph is misleading because it might lead you to the impression that tuition room and board has doubled at colleges and universities. Now, the way that you're supposed to make these graphs is you're actually supposed to have 0 on the bottom, and it's actually supposed to look like the graph we have on the right side, where you have 0 and then a break in the y-axis to indicate that you've jumped a bunch of numbers. Now, someone could still easily come to the incorrect conclusion that tuition prices have doubled, even if you did include this break. But at some point, you just have to rely on the viewer of your graphs to just not be a moron. And in many respects, even if you don't include the break, the viewer of this graph should be able to realize, oh, we start at 1,550. So this actually isn't nearly as much of a significant increase as it looks like it is. Now, you might say, why don't you just include all the way from 0 to 1,800 on the left side there? And there's 2 reasons for that. One of them is you might not be able to actually show that the prices have been increasing. Like, it might look so marginal that it hasn't increased in a meaningful amount. But 9% over 4 years is still not, it's not a tiny amount. So you might want to delineate that anyway. In addition to that, it would be pretty cumbersome to actually include all the way from 0 to 1,800 on this left side here, because that would be basically a ton of empty space. So it would reduce the readability of your graph. So you have to balance the reader of the graph understanding what the graph is actually saying versus trying to make it like easy to actually look at and actually demonstrate something meaningful. All right, let's go ahead and look at our second graph, which is a very interesting looking graph here. Because if we look at our data points on the graph, we have the break on the side. This is the mean hourly wage of fast food workers. We have our break on the side, and that's good. And all of the spaces in between the points appear to be the same distance apart. We go by years on the right side. We have wages, dollars per hour on the left. And right away, you might say, well, this doesn't actually tell you as useful of information as it might look like, because you start at 890, and then at the end, the mean hourly wage of fast food workers has only gone up 15 cents. So this graph looks like it's gone up steadily and significantly over the last 5-6 years. But the issue is that going from $9.05 from $8.90 is only an increase of less than 2%. So right there, this looks like a steady increase when the increase is not actually like meaningful. In addition to that, this graph is also like really deceptively or incorrectly constructed, because if we look at this, it looks like there's this massive increase from 2011 to 2012, when in reality, I mean, it did go up 4 cents, which is the largest increase, or which is one of the larger increases. But if you notice right here, we actually went from 893 to 898 from 2009 to 2008. And the reason why the jump in 2011 to 2012 looks bigger is because between $8.90 and $9, we're going up by +2. But then once you go from $9 on up, it goes up by +1. So the left side of the graph, the y-axis is just incorrectly scaled. The scale must be consistent. On our previous example, the scale consistently goes up by $500. It starts at $15.50 and it goes up by $500 at each increment. In this example, it goes up by 2 cents and then goes up by 1 cent at the end. So that's the way in which this graph is deceptively or incompetently put together.